Welcome back to my garden. In my recent video, in my Wandering Aloud in the Gallery series, actually recent's perhaps not the right word, I filmed it 4 hours ago. You probably remember the shirt. Anyway, in my last video from that series, I was talking about Chris Guillebeau's idea of how we need to find some area of our life where we push beyond average. In most of our life, what we do is pretty average, ordinary, normal. But we need to find an area where we really move beyond that. Well, perhaps you are sitting there thinking, but hang on a second. That's all very well, but I am literally Mr. Average Joe. I'm nothing exceptional about my life at all. My interests or my talents. What about me? What should I do? Well, in answer to that question, I'm going to turn to movies to provide a solution. As so often they do. The obvious place to begin is a film from 1995, Smoke, which is very loosely a series of vignettes from Brooklyn set around a tobacconist, Augie, played by Harvey Keitel. And one of the things that he does in the movie, he's showing the fruits of this to a friend who's going through a bit of a crisis. One of the things that he does at the beginning of every day, he takes his trusty camera and a tripod, goes over the road, and photographs the front of his shop. And he's been doing this for decades. He has thousands of these photos, all of which he arranges in albums. And he shows one of the albums to his friend, played by, I think, William Hurt, maybe not. Anyway, someone like that, a very well-known actor. And he shows them, and he says, but they're all the same. And Harvey implores him to look a little bit closer, and he'll start to see differences, you know. Basically, to look at them more slowly and to slow down, which is appropriate given the situation that his friend has found himself in his own life. But I've always thought back on that, and it's actually a very interesting recipe for literally anyone to start an art project. Take something that you are sort of interested in, maybe not even that interested in, but is familiar to you, and just lean into it, double down. Actually, artists have done this. Giorgio Morandi made a career of just painting sort of an empty bottle or empty 2 bottles and a plate with an apple on it or something, you know, and he just painted this thousands of times. But really, anyone could do, quite frankly, exactly what the Harvey Keitel character did. Imagine you photograph the view outside your window every morning, and you do this religiously for years and years, and you collect them. You look at them and think about them, see what you can notice. Your life in every other way might be incredibly mundane. But just that one action would, I would wager, set you apart. And actually, in a way, I think might just set you free. Because once you start looking at anything for long enough and thinking about it, you will start to see things. Now, this idea of the same everyday thing or activity being repeated over and over appears in a number of other movies. I suppose the first one that I saw, which I can remember it being a sort of central part of the film, was 84 Charing Cross Road. You might have seen the film or vaguely remember that there was such a film, but it was an 80s movie, so quite honestly, you might not remember it, or even if you've seen it, it may be well forgotten. It was a gentle sort of movie. I have a feeling that the lead actress was Anne Bancroft, but I may be wrong. Certainly the lead actor was Anthony Hopkins. And the story, given that it's 84 Charing Cross Road, and actually is based on a book of, so it's a true-ish story, based on a book by a lady, Helen Hanff, something like that, Hanff, I think, who's an American lady, and she is buying books from, and it's Charing Cross Road, so Charing Cross Road is well known for this, from an antiquarian book merchant in London. I love Charing Cross Road. The second-hand bookstores were just full of the most wonderful possibilities, and I really enjoyed visiting my time in London, visiting them and just seeing what I could dig up. It was a sort of intellectual mining activity. Anyway, I'm digressing. Back to the film. So she orders these books from Anthony Hopkins, and over time she orders them by writing letters, and they start becoming a little bit less formal and conversational, and indeed become friends. I think eventually in the film, I'm not sure in real life, they meet each other. But it's a wonderful romance where the two characters never meet each other, or for the most part never meet each other. It's just, the book certainly is just a selection of quotes from, or excerpts, or perhaps even full copies of their letters that they exchanged over the decades, and she eventually compiled them into this book. I remember giving it to my mother as a birthday present, I think. Don't know what became of it. Anyway, it was a terrific book. She loved it, and an interesting idea, because it just points to the fact that you might be quite normal sort of people, but if you do something long enough and lovingly enough, which in this movie was quite literal, but in other cases maybe more figurative, and you aggregate all that, what you have at the end is something tremendous and something extraordinary. And I think this will be true for, as I say, anybody and almost any activity. I suppose 2 films, why not go for a third? And this is arguably, for me, I would say it's perhaps my favourite movie of all time. Partly because it's, a very sort of whimsical French film with subtitles, so it appears both to my inner sense of whimsy and, of course, to my outer sense of complete and utter pretentiousness. But it's a lovely, lovely movie, but it also resonates on a personal level, because I watched it just after being sort of one of my treats after successfully interviewing for my job at St Paul's. The interview was in the office of Gabbitas and Tring in Regent Street, maybe, could be. Anyway, after that I sort of celebrated with two little treats, actually. One was to see a film, and it was Amelie, and the other was buying a cookbook. I might mention that in a moment. But Amelie's a terrific film. But it features this kind of act of repetitiveness. A key figure in the film, a Russian emigre, continually paints the same scene, or the same copies, the same Renoir painting, continually seeing ever more in the film. And I guess in the broader scope of the film, this idea of repetition and collection becomes a motif. And Amelie herself collects photos of people from those automatic photo booths where you get passport photos done. And she falls for this ghostly set of photos of the same man that she finds over and over. And well, that's all I'm going to say, because I'd recommend, if you haven't seen the film, just give it a watch. It's great fun, very funny, very interesting, heartwarming, and I think it's brilliant. And if you want something equally funny and heartwarming, but a little bit more macabre, by the same director, I'd go for Delicatessen. But this, again, I'm digressing, as I always do, never mind. This idea of just finding something and wringing every last drop that you can out of it, I think it's a wonderful one, and I think it's something that all of us can do. Staying on the art front, there was a great documentary about sort of Art Brut art project, and it's a thing called, I'm guessing maybe it's the Museum of Everyday Things or something like that. This very eccentric chap assembles this mobile kind of museum of art by very ordinary people. And one of the people he features is this crazy Russian person who has painted the same scene in the woods over and over and over again. You know, and if painting isn't your bag, simply keeping a small journal where you record the daily temperature every day, if you graft it, a record of what you eat, take a photo of your meals. I mean, that's something that someone turned into a very interesting art project, simply photographing every meal for a year, and needless to say became an overnight, spread out over a year, Instagram sensation. Now you might say, but okay, that's not really doing anything extraordinary. But I think using this as an exercise in discovering something about yourself, doing this repetitive activity which you then reflect upon, there's no way of knowing what it will be, but it will release something in you, and a thought or an observation, some awareness of something about you that you never knew or didn't realize you had. So that's it. Give it a go. Why not? If you're an average Joe, your life is beset with humdrum normalcy and you'd like to break out of that, just find something that vaguely features in your day. Lean in, double down, and chart it every day for as long as you possibly can and see what happens. Well, that's it for this week. Let me know what you think, and until the next film, and I'm definitely not going to film any more today, it's ciao from a sunny Brazil.